Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. So we start right now with the story of lawmakers struggling to strike a deal to keep the government funded. So if you haven't been watching this drama on Capitol Hill, let's get you caught up. So lawmakers came up with a federal spending bill. Elon Musk and President-elect Donald Trump torpedoed that. That was version 1. Now, version 2 gave a revised version, but that got shut down too when dozens of lawmakers joined together with Democrats to vote against it. So now we're at version 3. It has to pass by midnight to avoid a government shutdown. So what's this all about? We know what it's about for Donald Trump, who said on social media, and here it is, if there's going to be a government shutdown, let it begin now under the Biden administration and not after January 20th under Trump. So let's go live to West Palm Beach, Florida, and CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Thank you for joining us, Caitlin. Trump didn't stop there. He also had this to say: Congress must get rid of or extend out to perhaps 2029 the ridiculous debt ceiling. Without this, we should never make a deal. Remember, the pressure is on whoever is president. So he's not even sworn in yet. Already looked like he's calling the shots. Let's dig into what he had to say. Walk us through that. Walk us through if this is sort of a foretelling of what this is going to be like between the president and Congress in the new administration.
Yeah, and we'll see if the third time is a charm today to try to get this spending bill passed. But there's no question that Trump and Musk, as we've talked about, have thrown a wrench in this entire process and really putting the pressure on Speaker Johnson there. A few things to unpack about those statements coming from the president-elect. One is on the debt ceiling. This is the limit that the government can borrow. This has typically been used as a bargaining chip in a lot of these negotiations over the past several years because it's something that has to be raised in order not to default on the debt, and it's often used to try to leverage for something else. Now, there are a lot of conservatives in the Republican conference who have long been opposed to short-term spending deals regardless, and also have been opposed to raising that debt limit without any cuts to spending. And that's exactly what we saw yesterday. There were several Republicans that voted against that bill that Donald Trump himself supported and endorsed yesterday. And so that raises a question of what is the leverage point that the president-elect has. Going into yesterday, we were talking about how Republicans are taking their cues from the president-elect, and in a lot of cases that is true. But in some cases, there are conservatives whose beliefs on these spending issues predate Donald Trump, and they showed yesterday that they are willing to buck him and Elon Musk and all these outside influencers when it comes to these spending bills. And that's why Johnson was in this pickle in the first place, and that's why he had to cut a deal with Democrats in the first place.
All right, so let's talk about Mike Johnson. Listen, he is really person number one when we think about this. And I'm also thinking about Josh Hawley, who didn't seem too hot on Mike Johnson. Let's talk about what his future could be. What does the president-elect have to say about Mike Johnson and his future, at least at this hour?
Yeah, and you have had some senators like Hawley and others who have been critical of Ron Johnson. They're on the other side of the Capitol. They have nothing to do with whether he becomes Speaker. So it's important to look at what Republican lawmakers are saying. And a lot of them, for this particular issue, do take their cues from Donald Trump when it comes to who he wants to be Speaker. Now, it's hard to see a photo of Donald Trump since the election that doesn't have Mike Johnson in it. He has been following Trump and trying to appear in public with him since the election as much as he can. You'll remember last weekend they were together at that Army-Navy game, and that's because Johnson knows his fate really rests on whether Trump supports him and whether whether the conference Republican lawmakers follow suit. And it's kind of ambiguous at this point. Donald Trump says that Johnson can keep his job if he, goes the way that he wants him to go. But remember, this is what kind of doomed McCarthy and speakers past, trying to get these big measures passed with a lot of dissent within the Republican ranks.
All right, so while we have you here, let's put all of that aside and talk about this issue. The president-elect is cheering on the disqualification of DA Fani Willis in that Georgia case. In fact, he told Fox News the case is entirely dead. Those are his words, but is it entirely dead?
It is not entirely dead. They took Fani Willis and her team off the case, but this case still exists. This is the last remaining criminal case against the president-elect that has not, come to its final conclusion here. But if you look at that hush money case in New York, remember the sentencing for that was pushed till after the election, but they still did not throw out that case. That was news this week. So the question remains, what happens to this Georgia case now that Fani Willis, who brought it in the first place, is no longer going to be ahead of it? And what kind of legal team, who would take her place remains an open question. The idea of Trump being prosecuted during his term in office is not likely. It's not going to happen. So the Trump team wants this case to just be, taken off the books completely, but there still are a lot of open questions about what happens to it. And the reason that this was such a political victory for the former president, now president-elect, is because look at all the other cases against him. I mentioned the hush money case, but remember those 2 federal cases were dropped against him as well. So they want this last remaining one to go away. We'll see what prosecutors decide.
Any word from the Trump administration on Elon Musk? We know that yesterday some lawmakers, especially Democrats, were playing a little reverse psychology, calling Elon Musk President Musk. Any indication there from West Palm Beach that that's having any sort of effect? Is Trump taking the bait, as it were?
Well, that's what Democrats are certainly trying to do here and try to get under Trump's skin with all of this. And it's no secret that this is a team that doesn't like the focus on someone like Musk more than the president-elect himself. He wants to appear in command. So that's kind of what we're watching to see, is whether or not Musk, overstays his welcome. He has been, at Donald Trump's side at every moment. You remember earlier last month, he actually went with Trump to meet with House Republicans. There's no question about this outsized role that he's been playing here. But it was notable, Reed, yesterday when this new deal was announced that actually didn't get voted for by Republicans. Musk was trying to give credit to Donald Trump for it. And you saw a lot of other Republicans following suit. So that kind of signals that there is an awareness that Trump wants to be the one appearing in command. But that's a storyline to watch as this unfolds, and whether Musk does in fact kind of overstay his welcome at Mar-a-Lago and within this political realm.
These relationships always fascinating with the president-elect, who is known for those 2 words, "You're fired." It'll be fascinating to see what the history books have to say. Caitlin Huey-Burns, always making us smarter there from West Palm Beach or wherever you are. Nice to talk to you today on CBS News 24/7.